Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Tatiana Show. Missing the famous Tatiana today because she's off on a gig. Actually, she's on Fox News. So that's how big she is nowadays. She's on Fox. She's spreading the gospel of Bitcoin to the mainstream. And meantime, I'm here, and it's the 12th of May. And Bitcoin has been doing its fun little bouncy ball game where it's just going up and down between sort of 50 and 60, 450, 460 USD. And today we have some fantastic guests. We have, starting off in the first part of the hour, we have Ash from Liberty Entrepreneurs podcast. And in the second half of the show, we'll be talking to the guys from the amazing project Augur. So if you've ever wanted to find out the future, stay tuned because you'll find out how. Yeah, Ash, welcome to the Tatiana Show.
Hey, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. And you're doing a lot of work with gold as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I've been a gold bug for a long time, long before Bitcoin was ever invented. So I have a lot of gold and silver background. I'm still stacking bullion. I like probably many of your listeners still have a portfolio full of gold stocks that we bought back in 2007, 8, 9, 10, and now we're on quite heavy losses. But I'm still very bullish on gold. But once Bitcoin was invented and I started understanding, I have an engineering background. So Bitcoin was able to bridge my love of technology and computer science with my love of economics, freedom, sound money. And so it's since I've been involved in the Bitcoin community for several years now, I consider it an evolution of money, and now I favor it over gold. But I've still got a lot of love for my my gold, precious metals, hard money people.
Yeah, I mean, we run Voltoro, which is the Bitcoin gold exchange, and it's really, we see it very similar, I think, is where gold is a great store of value long term. I mean, we have 3,000 years of it holding pretty relatively stable value across that time. But it's super hard to move around. It's hard to verify, whereas Bitcoin is the total opposite. It's very young. It's potentially massively volatile because it's such a tiny market currently. But it's super easy to move around. It's slippery as. So by combining gold and Bitcoin, I think we really are getting close to the perfect money.
Yeah, I agree, and I think they're complements to each other. I was at Freedom Fest last year, and I was there spending quite a bit of time with some friends of mine that own a gold company, Anthem Vault, and I would hear a bunch of gold bugs come up, and they're starting Freedom Fest. I don't know if any of your listeners have been, but it's in Las Vegas. It's the largest gathering of free minds, well over 3,000 people. I hope to go this year and cover it with my podcast, Liberty Entrepreneurs, but. What I found is Bitcoin people tend to be very positive about gold. Maybe they don't own gold, but they respect gold for its attributes of money.
Yeah.
But the gold bugs, for some reason, I guess maybe because they tend to be older or they're not as technically inclined, they don't understand Bitcoin to it really much extent. So that's why it's like anything new coming in is kind of pushed out, by the old guard. I find Bitcoin and gold to be very complementary to each other.
Absolutely.
Gold is physical. You can actually hold it. We have thousands and thousands of years of history protecting our physical objects. If you had a gold coin, you would probably know how to protect it. You could put it in your pocket or hold it tight in your hand or put it in a safe, right? Maybe in your underwear drawer, your mattress, who knows, bury it in your backyard. This is different with Bitcoin. Digital security and digital asset protection is something brand new that people not only haven't taken seriously, but they don't have any experience doing it. Up to this point, you share everything on Facebook. Privacy hasn't really mattered to people, and I think we're slowly seeing that change. So the benefits of gold with the benefits of Bitcoin can only make us free people much stronger.
Oh, absolutely, and I really see it the same way. I often compare it to You know, back in the day, we had telephone calls where I would call from Australia to Germany, and it would be like, hello, hello. It would be really echoey and long distance, and it would cost an arm and a leg. Why? Because you were actually calling exchange to exchange to exchange through the
Right.
actual phone network. But then IP came along, and what people were doing is making a local phone call to an IP. The IP would change the internet. It would transfer the voice across to Germany, and then make another phone call, a local phone call. So we're basically two phone calls. And I see Bitcoin as being the same thing. People will use Bitcoin to jump into something like gold and spend that gold as Bitcoin. So use the Bitcoin as the thing that you spend and move quickly, and then sit it back in another value, whether that's another a pegged cryptocurrency or whether that's an actual physical asset or whatever. And there's the beautiful thing is that we are now opening the markets up to competition, and we see in the past with other private people that have tried to start private currencies, they've been shut down very quickly. And this is what Satoshi saw, that hey, we need a decentralized version that can't be shut down because competition keeps the bastards honest. And that's
Absolutely.
really what we're down to now, is that people can run amok. We see in Venezuela, they just, because they have a monopoly on their currency, they can just run amok. They don't care, because the people that are closest to the corridors of power, or comfortable in the corridors of power, and are close to the money creation, can simply do what they want, and you have to go along with it. But now there's this beautiful exit door that they can just, you guys are being a bit silly with my currency, so I'm going to exit.
Yeah, and what's really neat is the additional liquidity that entrepreneurs like Peter Schiff, I work for Peter Schiff's Euro Pacific Bank headquartered in
Yeah,
St. Vincent. And he was the first person, or one of the first people, to pioneer the gold-backed debit card. And what we were able to do is you could open an account with us, buy gold, buy silver, and then use a debit card to spend down on those on your stack, basically. So that's one of the issues with gold, is nobody accepts gold for payment unless you're
yeah,
in a libertarian community, or maybe you're at PorkFest or something like that. Nobody
yeah.
accepts gold and silver as payment. Now with Bitcoin, it makes it even better. Like what you guys are doing, a very easy, fluid exchange in and out of Bitcoin to gold, or some of the different types of cards, Bitcoin-backed cards or gold-backed cards. It's really amazing what
I,
entrepreneurs in the marketplace are doing to help us finally, once again, instead of having just to hoard our real money, to spend it when we want to.
Well, I think this is one of the things that education is really opening up, is that people are starting to, for the first time, realize, and it's something that I learned very late as well. Once you have money in the bank, it's not your money anymore.
Hmm.
It's owned by the bank. Whereas if you have gold in a vault, it's your property sitting there, and it's usually, if you in the with the right company, it's off the company's books. So it's, even if the company goes broke, the liquidator can't touch your gold. Your gold is your gold. Whereas if a bank goes broke,
Right.
you don't even know where that money is. You just lost it. And they usually have these bail-ins when they deal with that with insurances. But if it's a massive crash, the
Hmm.
insurance company, there's no way it'll cover it.
Right.
But tell us about your podcast, the Liberty Entrepreneurs. It sounds fascinating.
Yeah, thank you. So like I've said, I got introduced into the Liberty movement officially, I guess, in 2007 during Ron Paul's presidential campaign. But now looking back on it, I've been libertarian minded for as long as I can remember. I've been an entrepreneur for as long as I can remember. Anything from selling candy in school to having a small landscaping and grass mowing business whenever I was growing up. And having that cash flow coming in was always something that I really appreciated. Like most of your listeners, I went to public school, and I remember, I always had cash as a kid. I never got an allowance, from my parents. I just worked and
Mm.
brought in cash. And I can remember my favorite times at school. I was always one of those kids that was at the top of the class, and so I was very bored in school, and I would have to help my peers and stuff like this. But what I looked forward to wasn't a particular class, but I looked forward to three things in public school. One was lunch, because finally I had some decision and some control. Did I want the macaroni and cheese, or did I want the Brussels sprouts, or did I want to eat pizza for the 73rd day in a row, right? Well, it's probably the pizza. The second thing I really appreciated was the ice cream afterwards. because that was a separate, different little event. We would all line up and leave the lunchroom, and we'd go to the little ice cream station, and it was a quarter back then. And if you had a quarter, you could get ice cream. And I've always been a sucker for ice cream. It's probably my favorite food group. It's all by itself at the top, ice cream.
Ice
And so,
cream.
right?
Can't
And
go
the
wrong.
and the third thing was the book fair. I loved the book fair, and I came from a family, we didn't have a lot of money, but I made my own money, a couple dollars, and I would go buy like a little pencil, or I would always have to find, so like I would always go around the book fair and try to find what did I feel like I was getting the most value for that $2.50 that I had saved up from selling candy or something like that.
Right on.
And so it hit me. My favorite times of my life was when I was interacting with the marketplace.
Yeah.
Right. And who are I have an engineering background. That's what I've done. I was a computer scientist and an electrical engineer for many years. And so I'm used to building systems and building networks and building applications.
Yeah.
Once I started putting that together with the joy that I found in the marketplace, the win-win interactions of the marketplace, I figured out that entrepreneurs are basically the engineers of the market. And all the freedom that I had built being an engineer, and all the freedom that I'd experienced interacting with the freaking cafeteria or the bookstore or whatever it is,
Yeah.
the perspective came to me that the best way to produce freedom in your own personal life is through the entrepreneurial process. And
Absolutely.
so Liberty
Absolutely.
Entrepreneurs is an outgrowth of basically, decades of experience of mine in trying to provide freedom for everyone. I went and marched in 2008 in Washington, D.C. at the Ron Paul Parade, the Ron Paul March. I helped fund the Freedom Blimp and held
Oh
signs.
yeah, the blimp. I was
Right.
I was loving that. Although I was in Australia, I was like, look at that blimp.
Hey, I actually saw the blimp. I was living in North Carolina at the time, and that's where the blimp took off from, and I actually saw the blimp driving to work
Fantastic.
one day. But yeah, Liberty Entrepreneurs is basically my perspective of I had to stop trying to provide freedom for other people, right?
Yeah.
Us
Yeah.
as libertarians, we tend to think, oh, the sheep will this and the sheep will that, and we have to provide freedom for them. Otherwise, they're not going to be smart enough to do it themselves. Well, if you're not free yourself, Joshua, how can you help other people be free? If you're
Yeah.
not, how can you give something you don't have? So for me, it's all about internal and personal freedom. And once you feel free and once you know how to create freedom, then start leading by example, and other people are going to follow you.
Absolutely. And it's not the easiest path either. The easiest path is to sit on your ass and get other people to pay for you. But it's a really void. It's a null life. You really feel nothing. When you stand up and you say, I'm really passionate about this, and I'm going to embrace my entrepreneurial spirit, it truly is. That is the true meaning of freedom. To be able to be free to follow your dreams and your passions, and to be able to turn that into value that you can convert into something else.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I've watched countless Mises lectures and countless Ron Paul lectures, and Lou Rockwell and Peter Schiff, and everybody talks about the free market and how it's going to provide freedom for us, how the marketplace and business people in general are looking for pains in society, and they solve them, and that provides freedom.
Yeah.
But nobody talks about the entrepreneur. Nobody is talking about the entrepreneur's role and actual actionable steps to create this beautiful market that we all say we love, but we like sit back from a distance and talk about the market as if it's this like mystical thing that just happens. No, it's me and it's you and it's Bob down the street in his butcher shop and it's Sally cutting hair and it's all these people doing all this stuff. And basically I got burned out on hanging out with angry libertarians sitting around bitching and moaning about how much the state sucks and how heavy the boot is on their throat. And I just threw my hands up, and I call myself a recovering libertarian now because I want to be an entrepreneur, not someone that sits around and complains. I want to actually build freedom, and that's what we do at Liberty Entrepreneurs.
Exactly. And I feel like most people that talk about politics, really that's what that is. It's just a waste of time. Oh, this and that, and you're not changing anything. What isn't a waste of time is saying, right, I find that crappy, so I'm going to build something better. And Fuller said it well, Buckminster Fuller, when he said, you can't fight the old system, just build something new and better and make the old obsolete. And I mean, I'm totally mangling that quote, but it's it's a great quote.
I can't remember which Bitcoin documentary came out, but there was someone in there that said, we're not going to fight the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, they print the money, guys. They can buy anything they want. We're not going to fight them. We're going to transpose them, right? Yeah. We rarely do you actually fight the system and win, because the system is ingrained and there's a lot of incentive for people to stay in the system. If you want to be free, just create your freedom, build your own society, build your own networks, transpose all of the totalitarian bullshit that is holding you down, and that is the perspective and the mindset. You know, our slogan is, we're here to help give you the mindset and the perspective to build your lifestyle of freedom and flexibility.
So what sort of guests do you have on the show?
Yeah, so far we've been pretty heavy in the Bitcoin space. You know, it's something. I have a co-host, Justin Blinko, who I met when living down in Panama. He was the CFO of a company called Coinapult.
Yeah.
We have interviewed everyone from Andreas Antonopoulos to Trace Mayer to Roger Ver. We interviewed Patrick Byrne from Overstock.com. Interviewed Paul Snow, the founder of Factum. And we don't want to be that niche, though. We've interviewed a lot of people outside of that. Just the most recent interview was a guy named Trevor Kaverko, who buys cash flowing websites. Basically, he has a portfolio now of cash flowing websites, because it's all about cash flow. If you can cash flow your living expenses, all of a sudden you're really free. You don't have to go in and sell your time for work. You now control all of your time. And so I interview people who are entrepreneurs. They may or may not be from what I call the mainstream liberty movement, but because of what they're building and being an entrepreneur and just having the mindset of building and wanting to be an entrepreneur, they understand how it creates more freedom in usually their life and in their client's life.
Yeah, and you know, it isn't, though, that, I mean, you know, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life as well, and there's something that drives that spirit. Something, I mean, sometimes I think it's idiotic because it's so hard.
So risky.
You know, it's so risky and so hard. But at the same time, I could not imagine not doing it. And
I agree.
You know, and I whatever you think of what Disney has become nowadays, I saw a film recently, Disney Before Mickey. Watching how hard Walt Disney worked to get to even start. You know, he went broke 3 times. He fought like anything else. Why? Because he really had a dream and a passion for creating something new. And so, you know, one thing I would say to all the entrepreneurs out there is really keep on going. Don't feel like everyone else has got it easy except for you, because we don't. Everyone has it hard, and life is hard. It's not an easy game, but it's well worth it, because you feel a sense of achievement, and everyone else also looks and thinks, wow, what an amazing person that's pulled whatever you've pulled off.
Yeah, and I figure, you know, I named it Liberty Entrepreneurs because my idea was, if people in the liberty movement, if they don't hold up an entrepreneur as someone who is creating freedom, because they're the ones that know the most about the marketplace. They're the one that know about, you know, all the different Austrian economics and praxeology, right? And like, these are the people that are the lowest hanging fruit. These are the people that my message should resonate the most with, the people that love the market, but they don't yet understand what the entrepreneur's role is in it, or they don't have a lot of experience. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but going through countless years of public school, I didn't learn anything about entrepreneurship. I didn't learn the first thing about entrepreneurship. I didn't learn about money. What did we learn? Nothing, basically nothing, right?
Yeah.
So now once our schooling is over, now our education can begin. And that's the idea. That's what I want. I want these liberty-minded people who love the marketplace, love Mises, Tom Woods, right, Lou Rockwell, Thomas DiLorenzo, Robert Murphy, all these guys to start paying more attention to actionable freedom, which is entrepreneurship, rather than theoretical freedom, which is the political and the economic side, the theory type.
Yeah, yeah, well said. I think that was the biggest thing in my schooling, is looking back and thinking, there wasn't one day where you actually taught me to live in this world. You just taught me absolute nonsense the whole time. It wasn't all nonsense, of course. You learn some maths and you learn how to read and write, but apart from, that's the sort of stuff you could really literally learn in 1 year.
Oh yeah.
Where the hell did the rest of the 12 years go? You know, and afterwards I just think, wow, you get out into the real life and you just think, oh my God, I don't even know how to balance my own books because they never taught me that. And you have to do specialized courses in things that are just totally normal. It's really a disgusting system.
It reminds me, there was a guy, I'm going to have to give a shout out to someone. I have no affiliation with him, but a guy named Isaac Morehouse. I just interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and he is offering a praxeology-based entrepreneur mentorship program. It's 1 year, just like you said, it's 1 year, and what they do is they have networked with a bunch of small businesses, anywhere between 5 to 50 people. And they have partnerships where you come into their program, they listen to what you're interested in, what type of skills you have, and they place you with one of these small businesses. Now you're going in and you're seeing at the very foundation. You're working with an entrepreneur who is building his business, talking to him, how he puts his team together, what's the significance in this new piece of technology he's bringing in, or a workflow that's going to give automation to something so that he can reallocate his employees' time to another task. So this is a really amazing thing that I've always thought that public school is an indoctrination camp for kids to learn about the greatness of the state, but also it's a make work project for a bunch of people that may not otherwise have work. I mean, think about all the jobs that the public school system creates. Well, those may not be necessary. We may not need 13 years of public school education. We may actually just need about 3 or 4. Then we can learn, play as kids, and learn from the world. Using philosophy or metaphysics, and learning where knowledge comes from. And so it's a trap, that's for sure. But his name's Isaac Morehouse. It's discoverpraxis.com. It's a praxeology-based entrepreneurial mentorship schooling. It's really awesome. Go check it out, Liberty Entrepreneurs. I released it about 3 weeks ago.
Fantastic. And how can folks get in touch with you or keep in touch, Ash?
Yeah, so it's pretty easy. Our website, libertyentrepreneurs.com. You can email me at info@libertyentrepreneurs.com. We're also on Twitter, Liberty.me Podcast. We're on Facebook /Liberty Entrepreneurs, and you can find us on all major podcast distribution outlets: Stitcher, iTunes Radio, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, RSS feed. We're definitely out there. Let us know, facebook.com/Liberty Entrepreneurs. We'd love to hear from you. And please recommend guests. If you know a Liberty entrepreneur, I'm always interested in networking and seeing who can come onto the show. So shoot me a line or tweet at me, Liberty.me Podcast.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to jump across now. If you want to stay on the line, and we can have a bit of a roundtable. I'm going to jump across now to the good folks at Augur, doing an amazing project over that way. We've got today Joey and, of course, Perry from Augur. How are you going, gentlemen?
Good. Well, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. The summer's starting to really kick in here in Berlin, which is fantastic because Berlin can be grey and miserable for far too long. So it's like nice to get... Yeah, and it's nice to get the vitamin D. But you know what? Everyone starts loving it. It comes alive. The whole of the city just is so vibrant. It's amazing.
I hear Berlin's a great social scene in the summer these days.
It is a fantastic social scene. It's really good, and it's very techy. Berlin has a great hacker community, a great hacker culture, leading all the way back to Kraftwerk and these sort of people playing with technology to make new things, and you see that all the way, all the different little groups and meetups that happen. It's really and it's an exciting town, definitely. Awesome. So talking about weather, I want to predict next week what the weather's going to be like, and I'm guessing Augur is the way to do it. How would I go about that?
Joey, do you want to start?
Sure.
Joey's Joey's one of our senior developers, by the way, and also kind of our operations chief. He's involved in a lot more than just development, although development is clearly the core.
Yeah. So what you would do is you would basically go to Augur, and anyone on Augur can create a market on anything. So if it was like, how many inches of rain will fall in some certain valley over a certain period of time, you would ask that question, and you'd put in, what you want the trading fee to be, and then you could also seed it with some initial liquidity. So basically, you'd put up some orders to offer to buy or sell to kind of get the market started, and then people would show up and trade back and forth, and you'd get some sort of estimate. And so the way pricing works on Augur is, it's basically the prices all add up to 1. In most cases, ignoring some other complicated types of markets, and so the price of something is the probability that it will happen.
Right. So not to get too crass about it, but really you're betting. It's a bet system at the base of it. But what you're doing here is you're seeing there's a choice to be made, a prediction, and you're removing the ego of someone wanting something. Let's say it's politics. You're going to Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. A lot of people would have a bias about Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, but putting money on the line lets people actually step away from that ego of who they want to win and actually look at the statistics and try to figure out who is going to win, because they want to win the money back. And when I say win, I know that's the wrong language here, because it's more like a stock market than a binary sort of style option, I guess.
That's one of the premises of the system, that people are much more likely to be honest, and this is pretty well established in the academic literature. Much more likely to be honest when they put money where their money where their mouths are.
So, and you guys are, I'm guessing, working on simplifying and hiding the whole nature of smart contracts, because it's built on Ethereum, and making it more people-friendly. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's one of the big challenges, is making it easy to use. So like, you can go on Augur, and it has like it's a website, and you can click on stuff and use it. You don't have to use a command line, or you don't have to download anything. That's the kind of the goal. Some of the challenges with that are it's hard to deal with Ethereum while at the same time running it in the browser and being fast. So that's one of the things we're trying to figure out ways to solve that problem.
Being a decentralized, because I have seen prediction markets in the past. In fact, it was one of the first apps that I saw with Bitcoin back in, God, I don't know, 2011 or something like that, where people you could place wagers on certain outcomes, but it was a centralized thing, which obviously got shut down or whatever happened, or they ran off with people's funds. I'm not sure anymore, but the beautiful thing with Augur, it's built on this decentralized platform, Ethereum, namely. But you're saying it's through a website. Can other people create a website to interface to Augur, so that if your website if the URL gets captured by, who knows, some 3-letter agency?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, it's not like a traditional website where you're connecting to a server and transmitting a bunch of data back and forth. It's really just a download. So when you go to the website and get it, you're really just downloading a file, and once you download it, it runs entirely on your own computer. So anyone can host that file anywhere. Like, there's copies of it on GitHub. You could host it on, BitTorrent. You can make your own website and host the file. So it's designed to run from your computer once you have the file.
That's great. And so are you guys running on a test net so far? How far? Where are we on the development?
Yeah, so we're on testnet right now. So it's basically with Play Money, and we're basically in our beta. And the beta has like 4 phases. We're in the first phase right now, and we aim to launch the second phase in a couple weeks. What the second phase will add is, right now you're basically trading back and forth through an equation, and it's basically doesn't really work very well in practice. So we're just switching to a regular order book.
Okay.
So that's going to be the second phase of the beta.
Right. So
I think
yeah.
one thing we haven't emphasized enough here, just taking a step back and looking at the big picture, is that this is a system that's being built to be decentralized from end to end, and that offers a lot of useful qualities. And one of them is the fact that, unlike these centralized prediction markets that you mentioned before, Augur will be kind of open-ended. It's a platform for anyone, anywhere in the world, to be able to create a market about anything of widespread interest, or speculate in a market about anything of widespread interest. So it's going to be something the world's never really seen before. It's going to be like a forum for, with topics about everything, politics, science, economics, whatever the crowd. For the first time, the market's going to decide what the market wants to speculate on. Rather than a single website or a single company or a single exchange deciding what it is people will speculate on. And that'll generate data that'll make it a very useful information source about the state of the world along a lot of different dimensions.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of different topics.
I see Google as, they had the mission of being able to make everything searchable. And I think Augur is kind of on that sort of scale, really. It's like whatever question you have, you could fire it into a market and allow the wisdom, some amazing wisdom of the crowd to. Although I must say.
That's right. I mean, imagine, many of us have the habit of. You mentioned the weather in Berlin and how rainy it can be before a summer finally breaks out. Imagine many of us have the habit, especially in places like Berlin, before summer arrives, and London, of getting up in the morning and checking the weather for the percentage chance of rain. We want to extend that same paradigm to everything. When you get up in the morning, probably the least important thing to you is the percentage chance of rain. It's what's going to happen to your company, what's going to happen to your industry, what's going to happen to your country, what's going to happen to relationships among countries, what's going to happen to your career. We want to leverage the wisdom of the crowd to basically offer people a digestible, information source that answers all of that stuff, immediately. And instead of having to read, it's not a complete substitute for reading the newspaper, of course, but for people pressed for time, you want an instant read on the state of the world on things that matter to you. Check Augur, and you have an instant probability, that gives you the crowd's, the markets, the world's, hopefully, best judgment at that time about what the chance of, whatever happening that's important to you might be.
So what I can hear people now asking is, well, how do you, out of this digital realm, this closed system where someone's asked a question and people are betting on either an outcome, how do you finalize truth to then come up with an outcome?
Joey, do you want to take that?
So that's like probably the hardest part. So there's approaching this problem, there's a few ways you can do it. One way is to just say, well, the simplest way is to say, well, okay, we'll get the results from like CNN's election API for elections, and for stocks, we'll get the results from Google Finance. That'd actually be pretty good, except the problem is these smart contracts don't have internet access, so you cannot do that. So the next simplest option is, well, we'll just elect some person, that'll be their job, and they'll report on this stuff. The problem with that is that person can buy a bunch of shares saying that Mitt Romney won, report that Mitt Romney won, and basically screw everyone over. Right. Or they can just be bribed very easily, so that doesn't really work either. So what we do is we distribute that amongst a bunch of people. We call them reporters, because they're basically reporting what actually happened.
Yeah.
And the way it works kind of on a high level is, let's say you're a reporter. You own the token called Reputation, and Reputation is basically a bond. So what I mean by that is, let's say we're talking about whether Justin Bieber got arrested last month or something. We don't have like the news exactly with us right at the moment, so we're just talking with each other. And I say, I'm so confident that it happened. Once we Google it and find out, I'll put $1,000 saying I'm right. And you're saying, no, he didn't get arrested. I have $1,000 on the other side. And then we Google it and confirm it. And let's say I'm right. You basically lose your 1,000 and it goes to me. So it's a very economic reputation rather than like the reputation where you say, oh, this is a good person. It's more like I'm so confident that I'm telling the truth that I'm willing to lose a bunch of money if I'm lying. And so basically it's kind of a consensus mechanism where it takes the consensus of the crowd who's reporting and redistributes reputation accordingly.
This is one thing that I really love about this entire community is that instead of, the normal person thinks, right, they're a bad actor, how do we punish them? Whereas in this community, in this crypto community, what we do is we think, right, they're a bad actor, how can we incentivize them to act good? And that is such a paradigm shift, and this goes back to what we were talking about with Ash, about entrepreneurship being a peaceful means of gaining freedom. Instead
and pragmatic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's really a beautiful shift. It's a beautiful evolution of the way we start to think about problems and bad actors. Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to add that.
You could see Augur. I mean, from one perspective, Augur is a set of programming instructions, but from another perspective, the way the model has been built, it's also a pretty well thought out set of incentives and disincentives to encourage people to do what we want and discourage them from not doing what we want them to do, because this is going to be an autonomous system that we want to be self-policing. Once we deploy it later this year, it's going to be completely decentralized and autonomous, and we want it to function well on its own without requiring a central authority, without requiring a custodian of other people's funds. The system will be self-perpetuating.
Yeah, based on these sort of Nash equilibrium style motivations, where you have two parties who have both interests to being not being screwed over, and so then can and then don't because of that. So the Nash equilibrium is actually the first way we were thinking about creating a decentralized exchange. Before I started Voltoro, we were really working on because I got done over by Mt. Gox, and so we really wanted to work on a way to have a decentralized marketplace, but ended up using the blockchain to make a very extremely transparent marketplace instead. But anyway,
Augur is among other things essentially a decentralized marketplace as well, and one among several that are being developed on Ethereum, including EtherX, I believe.
Yeah, there's some amazing projects happening. I'm really excited. Now, you say that it's on Ethereum. A lot of people ask, well, do you use Bitcoin to wager outcomes? Is that what's happening? I heard it was you use Bitcoin through a sidechain or something.
Yeah, so there's
BTC Relay.
Yeah, BTC Relays. It's this program on Ethereum where you send your Bitcoin to that address. It gets kind of locked up. You can use it on something like Augur or any other application on Ethereum, and then it basically keeps track of your profit and loss, and then you can withdraw however much you have left at the end back to Bitcoin.
Oh wow! And geez, so that's like a two-way peg, really.
So it's more like a federated peg right now, because it should eventually be able to support two-way pegs. So the difference for anyone listening. A federated peg is where you basically have like a federation of multiple people kind of confirming the transactions. The two-way peg is a more decentralized version of doing this. And so basically before we can have two-way pegs, we need like a modification to be made to Bitcoin. This is true for any sort of a sidechain. And so it hasn't happened yet. So right now we're stuck with federated pegs. Eventually we'll have the full two-way peg.
Joey, I haven't followed this as closely as you have. How many parties are involved in this federated peg? Like how centralized or decentralized is it currently, this federated system?
I think it's basically you just have to like upload a proof to Ethereum, stating that the coins have been locked. It's relatively decentralized, but it's not like
But not perfectly.
Right,
Yeah.
it's not perfect. Yeah.
Got it.
So if someone wants to become a reporter to report the truth to the Augur network of an outcome, how would you go about that? Because I'm guessing it's a good little income stream for people that are looking for different ways to make an income.
Yeah, potentially. So the way you kind of become one is basically reputation is a tradable asset, because as we discussed, it's economic. So it doesn't really matter. It's not like traditional reputation where you have like a score or something. So you can just buy it on an exchange once it's live. Right now there's people like kind of selling it like kind of like off exchange on like Reddit and stuff. But I would just wait until it's live, and then you can buy however much you want, and basically you send that to Augur. Basically like you upload your wallet to the site.
Yeah.
Except it's all run in your browser, and then basically every couple months you have a list of events that you're up to report on, and the way that works is you're kind of randomly selected to report on events. So you may get selected to report on 30, and your friend may get selected to report on 40, or something like that, and you submit your reports, and then at the end of that you get basically whatever percent of reputation you own, you get that much of the trading fees in the system.
Does the question have to be?
And the amount of reputation tokens is fixed at around, what is
11
it, 11
million.
million?
Yep.
Yeah, 11 million.
Oh, I see. Do they burn at all?
No, so they're only redistributed.
Okay.
If you lose it or something.
And are they divisible?
Yes, they are, and that actually lends itself to very divisible as much as any cryptocurrency token or subcurrency on Ethereum, and that actually lends itself well to one of the positive feedback loops that we're expecting to come from the platform. Imagine as traffic and volume on the system grows, the amount of trading revenue that goes to reporters, 50% goes to all reporters collectively, will grow. And if the market's fairly efficient, and it'll be traded on multiple exchanges, the price of the token will tend to go up, and that'll encourage holders, as they have with other we've seen this with other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, to sell off portions of their holdings, and that'll increase the number of reporters. The system will basically is built to become more decentralized over time the more successful it gets.
So do the answers have to be multiple choice? Is it a multiple choice thing? Because I'm guessing having some vagary doesn't work at all.
Right. So there's 3 types of answers you can have. You can have yes or no, so binary answers. You can have multiple choice, and then the third type you can have is called scalar answers. So that's like the rainfall example. How many inches of rain will fall? And then as a reporter, you'd report like 14.56 inches or something like that.
Okay. And with right, so it doesn't have to be just a binary question where it's
right.
One answer or the other. You can have multiple, right? Yeah, fascinating. And have you guys, one, to play the devil's advocate, I've got to say that some people, the wisdom of the crowd sometimes falls down. I mean, I've seen some horrific acts on gain popularity on, I don't know, some sort of singing show, talent show, and because people just feel sad because the person lost their daughter last year and they're up there singing, so let's vote for them.
Yeah.
They didn't have to put their money where their mouths are.
Well, they made a phone call.
Yeah. So when you're the wisdom of the crowd, there's there's the wisdom of the crowd where you're basically asking people to give you an estimate for something, and there's not money on the line. And there's with markets where there's money on the line. So with prediction markets, over time, the people who are really bad estimators eventually get weeded out because they lose their money. So
Right.
over a long enough time period, unless you're just super rich, if you're consistently wrong, you'll keep losing your money.
I find it fascinating. It really is a true example of economics in action in a really tight, concise way, where you can see economics being used in a way that's verifiable in what it brings, what it returns. Meaning that day-to-day life, we sort of think as economics as this sort of vague thing that's kind of interesting, but well, not really. But really, with Augur, what you're doing is seeing true economics being used as a macro level game theory compact package to keep everything running well. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it makes it very real. Like to give you an example with wisdom of crowds on Entrepre, which is a former prediction market. Someone bought a ton of Romney shares, and it was like the night before the election. They boosted Romney up to maybe 10 points more than he should have been, and the crowd brought it back down within an hour, because it's like, if you have the chance to make money by correcting the market, it's in your incentive to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people who end up trying to manipulate the market just end up giving it more liquidity and making the truth signals that much stronger.
It's fascinating. I mean, I remember, I'm not the biggest sports buff. I've tried to be, because I'm 6'8", so I should be playing basketball, but for some reason it's just not in me. Anyhow, I'm watching a game one day, and I decide to put, I think it was really like 50 cents or something silly on one of these teams. Man, my interest changed so dramatically onto giving a hoot about who won. So, economics really does, even if it's a small nominal amount, can change how you perceive something, or how you the interest that you pay towards something.
There's a guy, I can't remember his name. He heads this centralized prediction market effort in France, and his name is escaping me right now. But he studies this kind of cognitive aspect to prediction markets, and there has actually been research found, I can't remember the specifics of it, but research that finds that there's actually a change in the brain that goes on when money is at stake. How
Right.
somebody there's a concrete effect when money is put at stake that makes that makes the interaction different. So
I guess
there's a biological basis for this stuff.
I love it. I mean, time is money, right? When you enter your time, when you put time into something, you return money, and then you have to spend that money in a way. So it's really intrinsically built in to say, I've only got a finite amount of time, and I've spent it to gain this little bit of money, so I better spend it properly. And so that's where these prediction markets come in.
It isn't to say that the mechanism is perfect, but we don't present it. We don't advertise it as being perfect. We present it as superior to the alternatives, where among other things, and with many of them, the person making their speculations, I'm thinking of the Sunday morning TV talk shows, has no money at stake.
Yeah. I'd like to bring Ash back into the conversation. Ash, have you ever used prediction markets, the centralized ones, before Augur?
I haven't used them, but I am familiar with them. I can remember looking at InTrade or whatever it was back in 2012 before it got shut down. I found it very fascinating. I think that the whole idea of crowdsourcing knowledge and information is definitely going to be a big part of our future.
Yeah, and forecasting.
Yeah, and forecasting, yeah, absolutely. Because I can remember following Ron Paul way back in the day, and we would have events of 10, 20, 30,000 people, but then whenever Frank Lutz or whatever his name is would do a poll of 30 whole people, Ron Paul would only get maybe one vote. And I was like, this isn't very representative. I didn't feel like this was representative. And so having something decentralized that can't get shut down, is going to be very valuable. Remember, the government doesn't want us to be able to share information to this magnitude. I've said for a long time that if the government knew what web pages or blogs or podcasts were going to offer us in terms of instant on-demand information, we would have had to have a license for it a long time ago.
Yeah, I agree.
That's an interesting theory. I don't know, but the history of the past few years certainly adds weight to that theory. That's for sure.
Yeah, and we'll see. Hopefully they'll leave Bitcoin alone for long enough for it to to reach its potential.
We try to talk to everyone, including regulators, and we're getting positive feedback actually. I think one of the things that will help Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space in general going forward in dealing with governments is that, at this time the West is in trouble economically and doesn't really know where the future lies for huge segments of its populations in Europe and the U.S. desperate for the next big industry. This is it, or it's one of them. So I think that's one of the things that'll work in our favor. I mean, of course, there are things that are going to work against us, but that's one big thing working in our favor. That the economies of much of the West are clearly in trouble, short term and long term. And more people, including regulators, people that we talk to, are becoming more aware of that. Just yesterday, the former commissioner of the CFTC was saying that Obama needs to really do something about the fact that Europe seems to be at least marginally more open to cryptocurrency innovation than the U.S. And that if we don't do something about this quickly, we're going to lose it.
Yeah, I think
and he's absolutely right about that. It's already happening.
I think Europe has a lot less to lose being favorable towards cryptocurrencies because they don't have the world's reserve currency, whereas the United States needs to try to protect that status because there's a lot of benefits for the United States government particularly and the citizens for having world reserve currency. If they're friendly towards Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, that is just by definition of additional competition going to lessen their stranglehold and their power of the reserve currency.
Yeah, it's certainly a factor.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm seeing a lot of nations head again back to gold. Because it's first well understood compared to cryptocurrencies 3,000 years, and it I think if someone like the state or a group like the States, they would rather go back to gold that nobody centrally controls than giving that power to, say, the yuan or some other currency. So it's an interesting time. I think we're living in one of the most fascinating times in a long time. There's just no way we could have built a decentralized prediction market before cryptocurrency. It just wasn't available. You just couldn't. It was impossible. And now that we have the first digital item that can't be copied, and not only that this thing is programmable, it's opening up such vast chances of things that just regulators can't even get their heads around because it's so new that they don't know what to make heads or tails of this thing.
And even if they can get their heads around it, which I think that they probably have or they will, because government's not a bunch of idiots like libertarians like to think. They're incredibly smart. It's the fact that maybe they can understand it, they just can't control it. So that's the difference now is, typically you regulate something until you can figure out how to tax it, and then you tax it, and that's like what they do. But now they can understand Bitcoin, but how much control do they actually have over it? Well, not that much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. Folks, how long until we can get onto Augur and start predicting the future?
So we're aiming for later this year. It's kind of a nebulous, but it's really unpredictable on developing stuff.
Interesting choice of words.
developing stuff like this. That's like it doesn't use like traditional computer science paradigms. It's all like really new stuff.
Well, our developers are pioneers. I mean, software development in general has unknown unknowns, and on top of that, as Joey said, you're dealing with new paradigms. So we're working through those.
You guys are on a black map, and the little torch is just highlighting the little bit in front of you, and behind you it's lit up for the rest of the guys that are following, and girls. So it's I stand up and I salute all you guys that are really on the forefront of this amazing cryptographic and political and economic evolution. that we're all living through. Fantastic. And
Augur stands on the backs of giants, including Hayek, of course, Friedrich von Hayek, and Nash, as you mentioned.
yeah,
Others. Adam Smith among.
This is really going to reduce the knowledge problem.
Yeah,
that's one of the hopes.
You know, I just really it astounds me to think of the future where we can be told one thing on some mainstream media outlet
and then you can check Augur.
quickly check the truth, or check what the crowd thinks is the truth.
Yep.
And confirm it. Amazing stuff. We are across the LTB network, and the LTB network, of course, has Tokenly, the amazing project from Adam B. Levine. And we have a magic word that if our listeners enter that magic word on the website, LTB, the Let's Talk Bitcoin website, they get to collect some tokens to which they can then trade on. But they need a magic word. Has anyone got an idea here for a magic word for this week? I'll put it out there. I would say something like prediction. I like prediction.
All right.
Predict this. Let's say predict
this. Predict this.
In an Arnie sort of predict this.
We always have get to the chopper. I mean.
Oh yeah. That's true. Get to the man. He has a lot of choppers. Crashes every single one of them. Hey, wonderful to have everyone on board. How can people get in touch? Are you guys looking for developers over there at Augur, or are you guys looking for graphic artists? Are you guys looking for what are you guys looking for?
We welcome primarily any and all kinds of feedback from people across various disciplines. You can go to our Slack. You can go to we have a Reddit subreddit, and you can email us at team@augur.net. Actually, am I allowed to give that email out?
Yeah, it's on the website. You can find it all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, all of that stuff. Just go to augur.net, and it's all there.
Yeah.
Augur.net.
Yeah, and just scroll to the bottom.
Fantastic. And you guys are tweeting and all that too, I presume?
Yes, we are. That's one of the best news sources for updates on Augur.
At Augur Project.
Yeah.
At Augur Project. Fantastic. And Ash, you want to give your stuff out again?
Yep, Twitter at Liberty.me podcast, Facebook.com/Liberty Entrepreneurs. Remember, entrepreneurs is all E's until you are on the end, because you are the entrepreneur. So that's the easiest way to remember how to spell entrepreneur. Yeah, let me know, info@Liberty Entrepreneurs, if you could recommend, any of your listeners want to recommend someone to come onto the show, I would absolutely love it.
Fantastic. And for the folks out there, the magic word is, what's a magic phrase? It's predict this. Fantastic, folks. As normal, you guys can reach me at voltoro.com and email me at joshua@voltoro.com, or you can check us on the Twitter sphere at Voltoro. That's Volt as in bank vault with oro as in gold in Spanish, O-R-O, Voltoro. Any last words here for our audience, folks?
No, it's just been great. Augur guys, I've really appreciated listening to you, and I'm very excited. I've got some Augur myself. I can't wait to start getting paid for being right.
Awesome. I love the term actionable freedom.
Yeah, actionable freedom.
Making the libertarian movement a little more pragmatic than too much of it is now.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's very, very, very true. It's nice.
The hashtag that I would love to go viral one day is build freedom. So that's what I push.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, folks. Well, have a great week, and we'll see you next time on the Tatiana Show.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Nice meeting you all.
Nice to meet you too.
Take care.
Ciao.